As Trump has now been elected and will assume the presidency in January, Labour's past behaviour towards him is hardly the foundation of a good relationship. You had the spat with Khan, Lamy calling him a neo-Nazi sympathiser, and Ed Miliband going for various bog-standard TDS talking points. There are numerous other examples of top Labour figures insulting the man rather than using constructive political criticism. Worryingly, this includes Labour's Minister for North America, Stephen Doughty. Then, topping all of this, a Labour senior staff member organised a junket to America to campaign for Kamala Harris. Sophia Patel, their head of operations, arranged to send 100 past and present Labour staff on the trip, foolishly advertising it on LinkedIn, the post now deleted. According to The Telegraph, Patel also sent an email to Labour staff on August the 2nd, asking if anyone would be available to help out friends across the pond elect their first female president, adding, "Let's show those Yanks how to win elections." She herself would be attending the jolly for 2 weeks. The Telegraph also claimed Labour figures had been advising Harris on her run. That's all the poor woman needed. Starmer's new chief of staff, Morgan McSweeney, Matthew Doyle and Deborah Mattison had apparently briefed the Harris team while visiting America. The campaigning trip, which supposedly was called off or at least curbed when the story broke, was not necessarily illegal, contrary to what some are claiming. If foreign campaigners are unpaid volunteers or not compensated for their work, it is allowed. You could argue expenses are a form of payment, but it wasn't clear from the advert that expenses were being paid. It only said, "We will sort your housing," which could mean they were finding people sofas for them to sleep on, and not necessarily hotels. Flights, car hire and spending money were not mentioned, so we might infer the volunteers had to pay for them. The Telegraph's report supports this version of events. Neither was this initiative anything new. I know from my ill-spent time in Labour there was a similar programme in 2016. From what I recall, you had to pay for flights. However, it is hardly a good look for a party of government, especially considering how appalling a candidate Harris was. Elon Musk, fresh from his recent beef with Keir Starmer over the UK riots, amplified a tweet pointing the situation out, stating, "This is illegal." Needless to say, that made it blow up into a huge story, and it prompted Trump's team to make a formal complaint to the Federal Election Commission in Florida. The letter contended that Labour's actions may have constituted foreign interference in US elections, which was rather flimsy, though they were only pulling the same stunt the Democrats pulled in 2016, when Trump's victory was blamed on Russia. There was some political theatre there, but it was to be expected, and would have been best avoided by Labour preventing such campaigning activities. I would suggest it should not be allowed for a British political party to send volunteers to campaign in any foreign election. It must be done by individuals in a personal capacity, without any use of the party name or infrastructure. That is just common sense, especially when a party is in government and will need to conduct diplomacy with whoever wins said election. Since winning the general election in the UK, Labour had been trying to cool the tensions with Trump. Starmer recently met him for dinner and was quick to phone him after the July assassination attempt. Lamy has met with JD Vance, old to be a fly on that wall. Trump himself spoke positively of Starmer before their meeting. This campaigning incident may well have set things back. Countering the outrage, many cite Nigel Farage going to campaign for Trump. Let's look at this. In 2016, he did so as an individual when he'd left UKIP. On that occasion, he did not actually tell anyone who to vote for, although he clearly implied it. That was acceptable, in my opinion. He has platformed Trump while wearing his journalist/broadcaster hat at LBC and then at GB News, also fine. However, he has now done what could be described as campaigning during the 2024 election, while a serving MP and leader of reform. He would probably have the same story lined up as before. I was just observing the event. I didn't actually endorse him. I was being a journalist. This is rather dubious, because we all know what he's doing, wearing a MAGA hat and grinning like a Cheshire cat. Sorry, I call it as I see it. You can disapprove of both Labour and Farage campaigning. It might be best for us to tighten the rules as I described to prevent any more ambiguity. Still, a party of government facilitating such a venture is a very different thing from a lone MP doing it. Now Trump has won, which he was always going to, don't be surprised if the brash New Yorker has a frosty or even combative dynamic with the UK government. Indeed, there is a rumour going about that Trump is gearing up for a war with Labour. That's not ideal for long-term allies in the midst of several global crises. If Harris had won, then Labour would have been tainted by the association, for Kamala was sure to be a catastrophe, just like her senile predecessor.